and welcome to another unique episode of A Different Kind of Woman. A Different Kind of Woman can turn bad experiences into a lesson learnt. Statistics show that 42% of marriages end in divorce and 34% of married couples divorce before their 20th wedding anniversary. This doesn't make coping with the divorce any easier. And on today's show, Divorce Not Dead, we are going to be discussing life after divorce. Now let's take a look at what's coming up on the show. Next, we're going to find out what people on the streets of London think with Anna Maria.
I think a degree of vulnerability that people have following the end of a marriage, and it makes it very hard to get over.
We'll be welcoming psychologist, family mediator and Divorce Magazine founder, Zoila Sindio, to our studio.
For the longest time, the one way that people believed they could go through divorce is, that's it, I'm calling my lawyer. And you both engage your lawyers and you go through that process. But now there's so many other ways of going through divorce.
And learning to laugh at the bad times with funny women.
Just invigorate myself. I splash lemon juice in my face and I'm awake and I love it. I love being awake.
Now, obviously, I'm not discussing this topic alone, and joining me today are incredible co-hosts Gemma, Maria and Verena.
Hi.
Welcome, ladies. And on today's show, Divorce Not Dead, we are discussing life after divorce. Now, divorce rates in the UK have actually decreased significantly since the 80s. However, 42% of marriages still end in divorce. So, ladies, what do you think is the main reason that love is not always happily ever after? Is there a main reason though, do you think?
You know, I think that's part of the problem, is that sometimes when you get married, you're looking for a happily ever after. And that comes from movies, it comes from fairy tales, it comes from, you know, false perception sometimes. And, you know, happily ever after can be a long time. So if you're thinking about death, let's face it, death could be, like, say you get married in your 30s, death could come along at 70, 80. And, you know, I find that people can do things for a short period of time, but when you're talking about long-term commitment, that does take a certain discipline. And it's not feelings and emotions all the time, it's discipline and it's compromise, and it's a lot of things.
Do you think it's a lack then of somebody actually planning properly for what is going to happen in the future, that they're actually going to spend forever with this person?
It's expectations, isn't it? It's about managing expectations. I mean, people get married for different reasons, not necessarily love. You know, we have to be realistic. Some people do get married because of love, but some people don't. So it's just managing your expectations whilst you're in the marriage. What is it that you actually got married for?
And sometimes it could be the pressure also, isn't it? Like, oh my gosh, I'm in my late 30s, I'm reaching this, and I'm still not married. It could be all sorts of things, and then they end up marrying the wrong person just because of that pressure. Not necessarily pressure from others, but pressures from themselves.
Yeah, you're right. And also pressure from other people, because sometimes it's your family's expectations. Or sometimes, you know, you want to marry somebody who you may not necessarily love, like Verena said, but maybe somebody that has, you know, is wealthy, or somebody that looks good, you know, and those aren't the things that keep a relationship together, you know, and those things can be temporary. Just because someone's got money today doesn't mean they're going to have money tomorrow. Doesn't mean because they've got good looks today that they're going to have it tomorrow. So many things can happen.
Yeah, and just because they love you today doesn't mean they're going to love you tomorrow.
Gosh, you're so morbid. That's DKW for today. You said it all.
That's the end of the show.
But we do believe in love.
But I think it's like so with some people, it's about that love versus lust, though, isn't it? And confusing the two.
Yes.
So in the first flushes where you're like, oh my gosh, oh, it doesn't matter, he's past wind, but it's okay because I love it. And it's like, but actually, once that has all disappeared, and maybe like, you know, the hair that was him.
I know, exactly.
And then that's when love is.
And Lisa, I mentioned about, you know, getting on in age and everything, but then again, there could be really young people going into relationship and thinking, oh, I'm ready for marriage, or you know, they get pregnant like young women and think that they have to get married, and you know, it's all sorts of things, really, isn't it?
It's tough.
It's true. And I think as well, because we're going to go to a break soon, not go to a break, we're going to watch some street talk in a minute, but I think as well with a lot of people that in the past, the pressures where if you got pregnant, you had to get married, whether you love that person or not. And then I think the rise in the divorce rate was those people thinking, actually, my kids are growing up, I don't want to be stuck with you anymore. I don't actually know you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, you know,
That's
realising that
right.
it wasn't love at all and
Yeah.
expectations.
Well, it
like
could have
you
been love.
said.
It could have been love, but people do change. You could
Yes.
actually, you know, because I remember when I got married, I certainly loved my husband then. I loved him. And I even when I divorced him, I still loved him.
Oh, well, we're going to get into that in a minute.
gosh,
But
that's a
first of all,
cliffhanger
do you know
there.
what I mean? Woo! But before we delve further into the topic, let's find out what people on the streets of London think with Anna Maria.
Why do you think so many marriages end in divorce?
Perhaps people don't know each other well enough to get married before they do so. So it ends badly when they eventually do become married.
I'm not sure. I think it's probably the fact that divorce is not so much of a taboo anymore. So you're more easily able to get divorced. So people are more willing to do it.
I suppose just because it's more socially acceptable now. In the past, people would have stayed together maybe for religious reasons and for cultural reasons. It's just not frowned upon to the same degree. So rather than staying in an unhappy marriage, people split up now, I suppose.
Because I think you got too many options these days. You've got all these like Tinder, Match.com. Like you know that you can always have like the door open, so something better might come along.
What makes recovering from a breakup so difficult?
I think a degree of vulnerability that people have following the end of a marriage, and it makes it very hard to get over.
The thought that you might have made a mistake and that you could work on the relationship and it could have been successful. That's what I always find difficult anyway. Yeah.
Just being so habitually used to living with somebody for that long, just any breakaway from normality is horrible, isn't it? But I don't know. Generally it seems to be that the pain is worth it in the long term.
Recovering, a hard question. I mean, if you put your heart in somebody, it's always hard to get back to who you were before.
So, interesting views shared in the video. Do we necessarily agree with those views? And I think the last one was about that it's hard, was it, to get back into...
And I said, is it?
I think it depends on if you're actually ready to, isn't it? If you're going to completely rebound before you've even got over somebody, then it probably
I think in terms of divorce, you know, if you're the one who's made the decision that this relationship, this marriage isn't good for me and I want out, then you'll be fine.
But then
It's the other person who doesn't want it who will have the problem, not you.
Yes.
I think it's a lot, isn't it? When you, a lot of the times when you get married, you say forever to a lot of things, and it's you hope, you wish, you want for it to last forever, and it's difficult because it's almost like a death. Really, it's you can lose friends because you've got mutual friends. You know, that could be the mother or father of your children. Then you've got to sort of split childcare. It's that seeing that person with someone else. It's the disappointment of, you know, thinking that you failed at that relationship. It's just so much that goes along with it, and I think it's such a difficult thing, especially if you've shared your life with someone for a long time. And you know, sometimes you just feel that you can't make this work, and sometimes you want to make it work, but you don't necessarily know how to make it work. And it's about both of you wanting to make it work, because if one person doesn't want to make it work, you could want to make it work and you could want to fight for it. And if that person's not willing to with their actions, maybe they might say with their
And
words.
I think that's when it becomes
and that's the
painful.
actual key. 'Cause
That's difficult.
I think so on here already, I mean, there's 3 out of 4 of us who are divorced and have been through that, and obviously been divorced for many different reasons. But it is that you can't fix anything by yourself. And I know you brought up children, for example, and because nearly, I think there was a stat about children and about the I read it off here. A survey of 500 young people aged 14 to 22 has shown the devastating impact that divorce can have on children. Almost 2/3 of youngsters said that the marriage breakdown had affected their GCSEs, while 1 in 8 turned to drugs or alcohol to ease the stress. 1 in 3 children claim to have experienced an eating disorder. So what do you think parents should do to prevent their relationship affecting their children? I mean, I know that, for example, then you two, obviously, were mothers and divorced. So how did you find it dealing with that situation, but also having children as well?
Well, for me, I felt I needed to get out of my relationship because my relationship wasn't good for my children. I felt I would be better positioned to provide my children with a more stable environment if I wasn't in the relationship I was in. So I made that decision not only for myself, but for the benefit of my children.
The same with me. I had no choice. I mean, if I had to protect myself and my children, obviously, that for me, that was the reason why I had to escape. I had to escape. So it's not something that, you know, I would have chosen for myself, but for me, it was, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. I had to escape from that marriage. It wasn't painful for me because I'd tolerated enough. But it was for my children. It was, of course, young and not knowing what is happening, and also the fact that for a very long time they weren't able to see their dad because of the situation. Because I mean, I can say it, he was an alcoholic, and you know, I couldn't allow my children to go with a dad that would not be able to be responsible for them, that would not be able to look after them. So in my case, it was very painful for my children rather than myself, because as I said, I tolerated enough. I didn't have a choice. I had to get out, not just for myself, but for the sake of my children.
And at least there was a reason then for you to withhold the children, at least for a time, from their dad. Because I think it's horrible when we hear the stories that the children are become the weapon and the bargaining chip almost in the divorce, and it's not realising the effect that can have. I mean, if one person keeps the children away from the other, you know, most of the times we hear it's the mother that's keeping the children away from the dad, and not thinking in the long term. So the short term, you're going to score in points, but in the long term, you could be affecting a relationship with their children and their father.
You know, divorce is heartbreaking because you're breaking up a family, isn't it? Because the other thing, the other side of the coin also happens where, you know, sometimes a lot of it is fathers going away. I don't know what the statistics are, is when you do separate, sometimes the parent can say, well, I've divorced you, and it's almost like they divorce the children as well. And that is also very sad for both. You know, I've seen a lot of women, a lot of friends of mine go through that, where the father would just be, you know, gone, and maybe he'll start a new relationship. But, it's, you know, you've divorced the lady, your wife, but you haven't divorced your children.
And they come out completely out of the picture.
And that's sad as well.
Well, it's already quite a lot to discuss, and there is so much. It's quite a deep topic, and so we are going to take a short break, but don't go away, as we'll be back soon with more exciting discussion. Welcome back, and joining us to discuss Divorce Not Dead is psychologist, family mediator and the Divorce Magazine founder, Soila Sendillo. Welcome, Soila.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
What inspired the Divorce Magazine?
Well, the thing is, I've been working with children and families for quite a while now, and it just happened that most of the kids that I started seeing in my practice were children who were going through divorce, whose parents were going through divorce, and the parents were bringing them to my practice because they were worried about their behavior, the changes that they were seeing, or some of them just wanted to know how to do it right. So, and having gone through divorce myself, I realized that one of the things that was really missing is a central place where you could get all kinds of information about divorce. How to start the process, where to go, what to do, what not to do, and also, and most importantly, that there is life after divorce. And so when the Divorce Magazine came about, it was really a place where you deal with the facts, you deal with what is going on. But most importantly, you go there and it's very positive. Apart from the facts and everything, the stories are there about moving on and not letting divorce be the definition of who you are after that. You're divorced and that's it.
You know, I like that word.
Because what I realised when I was going through my divorce, it's like when somebody dies in the family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you know what it is you're looking for, you've got no clue about the processes, what to do, you know, how to do anything.
Yeah.
Although there's more than one way to do something,
exactly.
and all the different options that are there for you.
Yeah.
So putting it all together in one, you know, space for someone to go to, I think it's a brilliant idea.
And that's a really good point you brought up, how to go about it, because for the longest time, the one way that people believe they could go through divorce is, that's it, I'm calling my lawyer. And you both engage your lawyers and you go through that process. But now there's so many other ways of going through divorce, avoiding courts. You can go through family mediation, you can go through arbitration, you can go through the collaborative way. So there's so many ways of going through it, which can make it less confrontational.
And less expensive.
And less expensive, absolutely, yeah. So yeah, that was one of the reasons that we brought up the Divorce Magazine, yeah.
It's such a great concept. You touched on children briefly, and you wrote a book called When Love is Broken. And I want to find out what strategies can actually help children cope with their parents going through divorce.
I think when you were having your discussion earlier, there was this discussion about the children. And somebody said, I can't remember who it was, that you're divorcing your partner, not your children. And one of the things that can make it much easier for children to deal with divorce and to cope with divorce has to come from the parents. And as soon as the parents can actually put the children in focus, you know, every time you're making a decision, every time you're thinking about something, is this going to be good for my child or not? Is this going to be conducive to his or her relationship with the other parent or not? Being able to just put yourself on the side. I mean, it's a difficult time because you're going through a hellish experience, and it's the moment where you're being requested by your kids to even be more of a parent. And sometimes you don't have those resources, and we can make mistakes, which, you know, do happen. But if you can just keep your children away from adult matters, don't involve them in adult matters, don't tell them about mommy who went off with Uncle Tom. Don't tell them about how much daddy is bringing in. Don't tell them you're not seeing your mom until she pays up. You know, things, they don't need to know that. Yes. They don't have the maturity and the capability of actually dealing with those kind of emotions. Yes. So allowing them to continue being children and sort yourself out without involving them.
That is a powerful point, because I remember going, I don't remember, I should say, when my parents got divorced. I just remember that we kept seeing my dad, and regardless of what happened between the two of them, I only found out when I was an adult, a lot later on. So growing up, I didn't know all the issues, the problems, and everything that was going on between them that led to the divorce. And afterwards, I was thinking, what? Pardon me? But the powerful thing was that my mum and dad and the family did not allow us to see things.
They looked after you.
Yes.
They looked after you.
Because I don't have children, but I have a question. Would it be best to sit the children down, maybe not together, because if you can't get on, maybe it's not the best thing, but would it be best to sit them down and tell them facts, like, you know what, daddy's going to move out, or mummy's going to move out, or this is happening, like, should you give them some information or not?
It would be it depends on the age, so the language that you use with your children, but sitting down together would be preferable, that you sit down together and don't start blaming each other. Well, mommy has decided that I have to leave. No, you have to sit down and agree before you talk to the children what you're going to say. They will have questions, or maybe not then, maybe later. But sitting down with them and telling them. And when you sit down with them, make sure it's in a place that they're familiar with. Don't take them to a restaurant they've never been. Sit down nicely and say, now kids, I have something to tell you. They'll always link that moment to that, So just somewhere familiar where they can cry if they need to run out. So at home, preferably together, and use age-appropriate language also. And don't be afraid of using the word divorce with your kids. If you know you're going through divorce, say, we're going through divorce. Don't say, we're going to try. If you know it's a trial separation, say it. But don't lie to them, knowing that you're divorcing, and say, we're just trying to separate and see how it works. Because at some point, they'll know.
False hope as well.
Yeah, exactly.
No, obviously there's so many different reasons why people get divorced or go down that route, and some obviously situations are a heck of a lot more painful than others. But so what kind of strategies would you say, you know, for people that are going through really painful divorces, how they can deal with it, how they can get through it? What's the best way for them to approach it?
The first thing I would say is get yourself a really good support system. Make sure you have a support system, meaning people you can go to who are objective, not people who are going to fan the flames of your anger, like he did what, she said what, you know, and then just make it even worse. You know, I'm going to see him and everything. You know, just somebody who will be objective and say, do you really think that's the best thing to do right now? Do you really think that is what you... So get yourself a really good, steady support system. And make sure that whatever happens during that process, you have people to turn to. If you can go for therapy during that process, go, because you will... You mentioned, I think you said something about it being like a death.
Yeah.
It is. You're losing so much when you're going through divorce, so much. And when you lose your mom or your dad or your brother, your sister, your child, we go to therapy. We go for therapy. Why not when you're going through divorce? You're losing a whole future ahead of you. So go through therapy, get yourself support, and then deal with it as you go.
I love that. I think that was one of the things that really helped me actually during the divorce, is having a good support system and having friends. You know, okay, sometimes, you know, we're women, we still want the women to bash the men for us.
Exactly,
You know?
yeah.
Still want to say, you know, yeah, you know, but they're not going to, as you said, completely fan that, and that's what I didn't have. So there are going to be times that people want to, I don't know, throw something at a wall, scream, cry, all those other things, and people need to realise that they're not abnormal and they're not bad things. It is a process, because it is a different form of grieving, isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
Well, it depends. I mean, I don't know about the word grieving. It depends. You know, sometimes you are in a marriage that is so not good for you, and getting out of it, it's like you getting life. It's like you've been able to exhale and to breathe and to move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for some women, it may be a grieving process, but for some women, it may be living again.
And you know what? You're absolutely right. The thing is, it's because you've already grieved during your marriage.
Yes.
You have done that during your marriage. So at some point during your marriage, you realized, I can't be here anymore.
Yes.
And as soon as you start your process of preparing to leave, you're already grieving. So by the time you're leaving that house, you're like, thank God, because you've done you've done your grieving process during that time.
And that's so important, because something, when you're talking about the Divorce magazine, for instance, I was thinking, you know what, that's actually a great resource, because even for people that have never been through divorce, sometimes you don't know what to say to the friend or the family member who's going through it. And you know, it's the same in death, if we liken it to death. You just don't know what to say. And it's like, what do I say? I feel sorry, or, you know, what would you say is the best thing to say for someone who's going through a divorce and you're witnessing it?
Yeah, it's so difficult to find the right words, because even in death, you don't have the right words. So you can, you know, just saying, I'm really sorry you're going through this. I'm here when you need me to come look after your kids, or you need to talk, I am here for you. That's it. That's really it. But, you know, then we can go that little bit extra. I remember when I was going through my divorce and people would say to me, oh, don't worry, you'll meet somebody lovely really soon. And I'm like,
this is the last time.
Really? Not now. Not now.
So no thanks.
No thanks. Meet someone lovely? No. So, and saying, oh, no, don't worry, you'll meet it's not really what we want to hear at that point. It's just, you know.
It's like you wouldn't say that to someone who's died, or you lost your sister, oh, don't worry.
You get another one.
Got another one. You've got a brother.
You've got another child, don't worry. You know. Yeah, exactly. So it's you know, it's really just being there, and just and sometimes when they come to speak with you and they're really venting, just listening. You don't have to find a solution for them. You don't have to say, well, have you tried this? Have you done this? You should try, you know, nothing, just really listening. And you'll find sometimes after that moment of listening, they go, thank you so much. And you're like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything, but you listened.
You listen.
And
Well, I need to ask you this, because, you know, I've had friends who have gone through divorce, and they've lost themselves in the process. What would you say to women who are going through this? They've gone through a divorce, they're now demotivated, low self-esteem, they've lost themselves completely. don't know how to find their way back to life.
And you find a lot of women who do that. And I'm talking about women because some of the people I work with are women. And you end up staying in a situation where you're unable to move forward. And one of the first things that I try and get people, even men, to accept is, it is what it is. It's done. And acceptance is so easy to say, but actually really accepting is really a difficult process to do. And once you accept, it is what it is. I've been fired from my job, now what? I can grieve, I'm really sad. I need to get up and go and look for another one. I can't be here all the time thinking about the job that I had last month. My husband has left me, or my wife has left me. So what do? I need to accept it is what it is, and life goes on. That process of acceptance is really, really critical. You can't move forward properly unless you accept that it's done. Yeah. And if they're really struggling, see a therapist, see a GP, talk to your GP, say, you know what, I can't do this myself. I need help. And then go see somebody.
Wow, that's really profound.
It is.
It's really deep because, you know, sometimes you could be with that person for years and it's just not even been able to picture yourself without that person. And even though you're not getting along or you can't get along and you just think, I know this is right for me, it's just that whole moving on, which is very difficult.
And the practical things, what do I do with my wedding band? What do I do with my name?
Or it's when somebody
asks you, like, to my maiden name or not?
Or they say, like, how's so-and-so? Okay, we're not together anymore.
And it's,
I remember that was the thing, that was the go-to question. Like, how's that?
It's just little things like going out. Sometimes you have friends as couples going out and all of that stuff.
The friends thing. You see, this is the thing that makes divorce so painful, because it's not just one loss, it's a huge bag of losses, many losses. Losses of friends, the ones who suddenly turn around and they say, well, I didn't like you anyway. And then losses of people who were always around you, being invited to dinner parties anymore. I went to a dinner party after I had gone through a divorce, and we were they were couples. And for the first time, I thought to myself, hey, I don't have anything to say, because there are all these discussions. Oh, remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? I had no one to turn to and say, remember when you did this, darling? No, there was nobody. So it's a huge loss of a future that you had planned, that you had seen yourself living through. It's all gone. It's all gone.
We've come to the end, and that's such an interesting and really great tips that you shared there. Thank you so much for coming in today. Wish you all the best with your magazine and everything. I just think it's a great idea. So
thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a short break, but don't go away, as we'll be back with funny women laughing in the face of adversity, and more inspiring discussion on Divorced Not Dead. Welcome back, and on today's show, Divorced Not Dead, we've been discussing life after divorce with psychologist and author Soila Sindio. And our team also went to find out how to see the amusing side of misfortune with funny women. See women turning bad experiences into comic material in this comedy workshop.
What inspired me to start Funny Women was a misogynistic comedy promoter who I worked with in the late 90s, so it's going back a long time now. Funny Women is 15 this year. And this gentleman who I was working for as a publicist, when I asked him why he never booked any women, he told me that A, women aren't funny, and B, that there weren't any funny women. So Funny Women was my sort of knee-jerk reaction to proving to him that that wasn't the case. And we were all set to do a big event together. And to cut a very, very boring and long story short, I actually then got fired by the aforementioned promoter because he had a fallout with his business partner. And I just thought it was too good an idea to let go. So I decided that I would set up an event
called Funny Women. In fact, it took me quite a long time. We did the very first event in 2002, and we did a really big charity night. And from there, I met the first company who came on board as the sponsor, which was the lovely people at Babycham, who enabled us to launch the awards, which this year we go into the 15th Funny Women Awards.
What do you love?
Sleeping.
Sleeping. What do you hate the most?
People who go shooting.
You now absolutely hate sleeping. You absolutely love people who go shooting. And I tap you on the shoulder. I'd like you to start just off the top of your head telling us exactly why you hate or love what it is that you now hate or love.
Get up at the crack of dawn, I go for a run and I just invigorate myself. I splash lemon juice in my face and I'm awake and I love it. I love being awake.
I've always loved people that shoot for sport. There's something really sexy about it. It's also really expensive, so people who do it are normally very rich, which is my favourite characteristic in a guy.
I think your own life is the basis for your comedy, and everybody has challenges and difficulties. And although they seem absolutely terrible at the time, what we do as human beings is quite often, when we reflect back on them, we will see them in a context of being funny, or thank goodness we got through that, isn't that amazing? Because actual laughter and comedy is a good antidote to tragedy. So, you know, the whole idea of comedy is that you laugh at your own life. Indeed, you know, sitcoms are always based on truth or true ideas. So that's really how to get started. You mind your own life, you come up with ideas, and quite often the thing that may have appeared to be the most tragic thing in your life might be the thing that turns into something that's really comical and funny. We run regular workshops. We vary the topics. My own speciality is called Stand Up, Stand Out, and I work with people to get them started in comedy. I'm actually not a comedian, but my talent is bringing people out of themselves and getting them started. I'm famous for shoving people up on stage when they probably think they're not good enough. But you know, in order to get started, you've got to do it. So it's a bit of a just do it situation. The workshops that we run here on the Hispaniola are great 2-hour, working with other women, getting your mojo going, having a bit of fun, letting loose, exploring the boundaries that you don't get to do in your normal everyday life. We love running them, love it, I love running them, and we've set some really good people onto a comedy career who probably thought they'd never actually be comedians.
Okay, so earlier in the show we had a discussion with Soila, and we were talking about the magazine, and she had some really great points, didn't she? I thought we could go back and revisit some of those, because Maria, obviously you were a little bit quiet in that discussion through no fault of your own, but I obviously know you've obviously been through a whole lot with divorce on your own journey and things like that. So was there anything that you wanted to add to that discussion or make a point on some of the things that she said?
Actually, there was so much I wanted to say, but she did make some really very important point, because you know, we're adults, and you know, we sometimes get back on our feet and everything, but I find that in a lot of divorce, children do suffer in silence. And I think the thing is, sometimes they don't want to hurt, you know, the mothers, or if it's the fathers, they don't want to hurt that. Yes, and you know, it's very important to pick up also signs on your children, because it is going to affect them. It's going to affect them very hard. And I had to look out for those signs. I had to look out for those signs in my children. And one of them I did pick up. Sometimes they become withdrawn, because we can't, you know, you're dealing with a 5-year-old and you're dealing with a 14-year-old. They're not going to have the same feeling about it. You know, they're different. And you know, I remember one of my sons was very withdrawn, you know, because of the whole thing, because of what was happening. It's one thing that, you know, parents, they divorce and it's amicable, where the children are still seeing their parents, but it's another thing when, as you said, I think one of you mentioned before as well, that it's another thing when the fathers completely cut themselves off, or like my case, I had to cut off. I had to cut off until he changed, because, you know, there's this having to protect your children as well. So it's very hard for the children, and you do really do have to pick up, you know, the signs on your children, because it's having a very bad effect on them, whether you like it or not. And then some children are okay, you're getting divorced, okay, but it's not always the case.
Do you think that some people get divorced too easily these days? Like, it's just become like, okay, it's not working out, okay, bye, see you, we'll get a divorce. And that's, rather than it being, you know, we've exhausted every other option, or it is the only option because of, say, in your case, alcoholism or violence, or, you know, something like that, that it's just become, we'll just get divorced real quick and move on to
I don't think, divorce is not something that is taken lightly. It's like we discussed earlier on, it's like a death, you know, and in some circumstances it's easier to get out of the marriage rather than staying in. In some situations it's even dangerous for you to remain in that marriage. But having said that, you know, women, I don't think women actually do just go ahead and divorce because it's available. I think it's more acceptable now for people to do so. Before, you know, in maybe 30, 40 years ago, you would need to remain into that relationship for the sake of your culture, or for the sake of your children, for example, you know.
Or for economical reasons.
Economical reasons, because women were not working, they were housewives, you didn't have any financial independence, you depended on your husband. I was once in that situation. You know, you depended on your husband, you know, you've not gone out there, educated yourself, you've not got a career, so then it's difficult. So all you're thinking is, how do I get out of this? I have to stay, I've got no choice. But now, women, we do have choices. We have careers, we're more financially independent, you know, it's more acceptable, so that's why women are divorcing now.
And then in some cases also, it's having, you know now you're on your own, and okay, you have 2 children, 3 children, 4 children to deal with on your own now. So it's very hard, and I think that's why back then, because you were saying now it's more, but back then maybe a lot of women, I actually thought of it, how am I going to cope? But then I had no choice.
Yeah, I do think that it has become a lot easier personally. I think because, you know, we are, you know, we're changed by what we see in the media. We are very celeb focused, so our focus is on celebrities, and they get divorced. They don't even turn up, like within 30 seconds. You sit on the front of a 30-second divorce. And I think it is a lot more socially acceptable. What I do think, though, to Verena's point, is if people in retrospect could look back on a divorce and understand the ramifications, and if they truly knew what divorce was, I think that some people would maybe have fought for the marriage. I personally, not everybody, but I think if people truly, and I guess shows like this, and, you know, like with the divorce magazine, things with what Soil is doing, I think there needs to be more awareness. You know, you're not seeing it publicised that, you know, it tore me apart, or I cried for how many days, and, you know, you don't think about all of that stuff a lot of the time. And divorce seems to be something which is quite accessible now and quite easy to do. Anybody can do it. So you don't always think about those really dire consequences. And, you know, I know somebody in particular who wished they didn't get divorced. They, after going through the whole thing, and it was kind of like, well, maybe I should have actually fought for my marriage, you know. And I think there are some people that just don't have that understanding that divorce is terribly difficult and soul-destroying. And I think if they understood that, maybe they would think twice. Maybe they would have gone to the council. Maybe they would have done everything. And that's my point.
Yeah,
I just feel like you've got to do everything.
I think if you've never been through a divorce, and you are in a relationship you're struggling with, then you're more likely to want to divorce because you've never gone through it, and you're thinking, this is bad.
I want to get out.
I want to get out. This is I need to get out of this. But if you've already gone through a divorce already, and you're in a second marriage and contemplating divorce, then it becomes much more difficult for you. It becomes a really difficult decision for you to make because you've been through it before, you know, and you're thinking, well, maybe I should not have done this, maybe I should have stayed, maybe I should have fought a bit harder. Maybe this person isn't a monster after all compared to what I've got now. You know what I mean?
So instead of going through all the options, you know, instead of going through all the regrets, go for all the options first.
But then you never, that's the thing, it's a catch-22.
But that's what I was going to say, sorry ladies, because we are coming to the end of the show, and it isn't, well, it's about being divorced, not dead. It's about life after divorce. So obviously we've been through it, but we've only got like about 50 seconds or so. So what kind of tips can we say to people about life after divorce, the positives, the great things?
I've never been through divorce, so I'll have the shortest point. But my point would be, I think that you need to create a new future. You know, when you get married, you know, when I got married, I was thinking about my future and, you know, all the dreams that we're going to have and the plans. I think that after divorce, it's important to have new dreams and new plans. You know, maybe you're not going to have it with that person. You're not going to have it with that person, but you should still continue living. And that was something that I helped my sister go through when she went through her divorce. I was like, you know what, make yourself over. We cried, we did the whole tears, we stayed at her house, we listened to her, we did everything. And it came to a point where my other sister and I were like, right, now it's time to make yourself over, get a new look, go for that job you always wanted, let's go on holiday, let's come up with new ideas, new dreams, new plans, because you aren't dead. And that's what the topic is.
Go out there, make yourself happy, find life. There is life. So it's not, you're not dead.
Yeah.
You're just starting anew. You're rebranding. You're rebranding yourself.
Yeah. Well, you've heard our thoughts on this subject, and like Verena said, you have to rebrand yourself. You have a perfect opportunity to start again. You are not dead. There is life after divorce, as everyone on the panel is proof of that. So tell us your thoughts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or by emailing comments at dkw.me. And join us next week for another exciting episode of DKW. Until then, it's goodbye from us.
Bye.